Hello everyone, my name is Audie Ratliff and you are watching the Ratliff Mandolins weekly production diary. As many of you know, I am a one-man shop and I build mandolins in batches of 10, and we are pretty much right in the middle of a batch of 10 that I'm gluing fretboards on some and doing this and doing that. And I thought I'd take a moment to explain to you kind of how I plan my work day and my work week. I usually have, when I come to work every morning, I have a primary goal, a primary job to do that day. And then when I've done all that I can do for that one job, then I usually, in the back of my mind, I have a secondary job to pick up and take up the rest of the day. Now, last week, if you recall, my primary job was the peg head binding and the inlay in mandolin number 10 in this batch. And every day I would start my day with doing whatever needed to be done here. I would glue a piece of binding and then maybe go back in the evening and do a second piece of binding. And by the time I was done, I was with the binding, I got to do the inlay and all like that. Now, when I had done everything I could do to this mandolin that day, I would go into the big room and do whatever needed to be done to further gluing the fretboards on the rest of the batch. So this last week, this was primary job and the fretboards were the secondary job. Now this week we're just going to trade places. Every day when I come to work in the morning, I'm going to go into the big room and do whatever it takes to glue a fretboard on. So hopefully by the end of the week I'll at least get 5 fretboards glued on. And then once I've done everything in there that I can do that day, then I'll come in here and work on, as a secondary job, to put finish on this thing. And that will be sanding it out, shaping the neck, cleaning it up, taping it up, doing that whole 9 yards. And there's from this point right here until I can put finish on it, will be at least 10, if not 12 hours worth of sanding and all like that. So we might not get that done by the end of the week, but we're certainly going to make some progress in that area as well as a secondary job to this week's primary jobs. So I am going to just go into the big room now and get started, and I'm going to carry the camera with me. I'm going to take some video of anything or everything that seems to be interesting to me that I think you might like to watch as well. So I invite you to come and spend my work week with me. Well, it is now Wednesday evening, and this is the first chance that I've actually had to work on mandolin number 10. Since I've talked to you last, I have done nothing except glue in truss rods and shape and make and glue on fretboard extenders and then glue fretboards on. And so that's kept me busy basically for the last 3 days. But I'm now caught up in there for the moment, and I have a couple hours this evening to work on mandolin number 10. And the first thing that we're going to do is size the neck down to final shape. So that's what I'm going to work on this afternoon. This is my mandolin holding jig to shape the necks, and I have a couple of things here I'll show you right quick. This is a little gauge that tells me how thick that neck should be right here at the 8th fret and then at the 1st fret, and you'll get to see me use this here in a minute. And we're just going to lock the mandolin in this holder and basically tackle it with a rasp until it fits these dimensions, and then we're going to round it over to fit our taste. So let me show you all of that. We'll get some good footage of that, and you can see the whole process of sizing and shaping the neck down to its final shape in preparation to shoot finish on it. Now you see that the mandolin is clamped on this fixture right here, upside down, so that I have access to the neck. And if you'll notice these slots that's cut in this fixture, which match these little prongs here, and I have 2 different measurements here, one at the 8th fret and one at the 1st fret, and they're marked here. The 8th fret, this thickness right here should be 0.94. Obviously that neck is too thick, and 0.87 at the 1st fret, and it's pretty close but still just a tad thick. So I'm going to take the rasp and rasp that down until these things will fit all the way over that neck. And now it's just a matter of rounding everything over and making it feel good in your hand when you grip it. I've actually got a couple of profile jigs, but I hardly ever use them anymore. I've done so many of them, I just about know what it's supposed to feel like. Now we'll move to the treble side. So now we've roughly cleaned off to the binding here, and we've got our depth more or less set, and then it feels pretty square right at the moment. So now we're just going to try to round everything off until it feels good. Now I'm going to put it in a different jig, one that will hold the whole mandolin upright, and work on things like this joint right here. I like for that to have a nice concave shape, nice and graceful on both sides. And this right here, I like for that slope to come down nice and square for a little ways before it starts to roll over until and then eventually blend right into the neck right in this area here. So you want to go from a flat surface to a completely rounded surface right in here. So I want to work on those two sides and this, and then we'll fit everything in between to kind of match those contours. Well, I kind of jumped the gun there just a little bit. Usually at this stage of construction, before I go to these parts, I will go ahead and take the back of the peg head down, make sure that I got a good smooth flow into the neck right here, and get all of this surface right here sanded down to 100 grit at least. So let me do that first. Okay, so we're now at the point where I want to address this heel area right here on both the treble side and the bass side in here. And I've chose to show you the treble side because the scroll's not in the way. It's easier to see, it's easier to do as well, and it's a lot easier to photograph. Now what we want to do is fix this whole plane right here. I prefer to have a negative sweep in there, and if we lay this straight edge right here, you see that I don't have that. So, and it's mostly humped right in this area right here. And I'm going to carve all that out. I have about 4 different tools that I use to do this job. I have, this is sort of a favorite gouge. It's an in canal. And I also have this out canal, very, very shallow sweep on the gouge itself that we may use here in just a few minutes. Right there. And then once I get it carved down to about where I want it, I have a bent rasp that just kind of gets in there and smooths everything out, all of the gouge marks. And then basically I have a piece of red oak that I have put an arch in, and I'll wrap sandpaper around that and do it that. So let me show you all of those steps. We'll just do this entire thing right here, right now. So as you can see, I now have a pretty good sweep all the way out at the joint itself, but out here we still have bad hump. And so I'm just going to line up and kind of sight down through here and see what needs to come off to blend this shape with this shape out here. So now we're going to go to the rasp because I more or less have the shape that I want. I've actually ground off all the teeth on the side of the rasp here so that it doesn't chew out this surface as well. So that's looking pretty good. What we have now is a hump right through here where this is flatted off and this was rounded in. So all we really need to do is just round all that in. We can do that with this rasp. Sometimes I'll take another one, but I think I can do it with this rasp right here. We're just basically wanting to knock off everything that doesn't flow smoothly. So now, as far as the treble side of the neck heel right now, everything is about where it needs to be. We have a nice flow, a nice graceful flow on that joint, and all we really need to do is just sand everything, and then we can start looking for really minor stuff like a hump or a little flat spot or something. But that's this side. Now I'm going to flip it over and do the other side, but I probably will not film all that. It is now Thursday late morning, and those little clips that you just got through watching were what I did earlier this morning as far as furthering the fretboard gluing on processes for the mandolins that haven't had their fretboards glued on. And so now I'm here with mandolin number 10, and I wish there was some way that I could make the next little bit of work more exciting for you to watch, but I can't. It's just simply dull, boring sanding. Probably take me from this point on probably 6 or 8 hours worth of sanding. The back is in pretty good shape down to about 100 grit. The peg head needs to be done. The neck here and here needs to be final sanded, and all of the sides, they've not been touched at all since I put the binding on. And so it's going to take quite a while. I'll take some footage of it, but trust me, it's just dull, boring sanding. Alright, I've sanded for about 6 hours now, and I'm down to 220 grit all the way around the sides of the mandolin, here, up the side of the neck, all the way around the side of the peg head, all the way back around here, has been sanded down to 220 grit paper, so we're getting pretty close there. What has not been done is the back. It's still down at 100, and the back of the peg head is still at 100. So I have a jig over here that I'm going to put right here, and this jig will allow me to work on the backs of the mandolin. I'll show it to you right now. It is a big old heavy rascal. It's a steel cylinder full of concrete with the holder tray bolted on top. So it's a monster to move. It's very heavy, and we're going to do that right now. We're going to put it right here where this light is so that I can work on the back of the peg head and the back of the mandolin itself. is now Friday morning, end of the week, and I am going to start my day the same way I've started my day every day this week. I'm going to go in the big room. I'll take the mandolin that I glued the fretboard on yesterday, bring it forward, hang it here in the finished prep room on the wall. I will go back and take the mandolin that I glued the fretboard extender on yesterday, clean all that up, get it ready, glue the fretboard on it, and then I will glue another fretboard extender on another mandolin. In this instance, here it is, and it'll be mandolin number 4 in preparation for getting the fretboard glued on that mandolin. Now, the final count, or the final stand where we're at with this batch, is that I've glued the fretboard on the 3 extra mandolins that we have and 7 of the others. So we have a grand total of 10 mandolins that's had the fretboard glued on in the last couple of weeks, and I have 3 left, number 1, 4, and 5, and I'm getting ready to glue the fretboard on number 5 here in just a minute. And so that'll just leave number 4 and number 1 for next week. And next week we will also hopefully get far enough along to get some finish on mandolin number 10 and start that whole process for all of these other ones. There's an awful lot of those that have to have peg head bound, and so there's going to be some of that next week, and just a whole assortment of jobs to do. And I sure do hope that you come back and visit with us next week on the next episode of the Ratliff Mandolins Weekly Production Diary. Hope to see you then. Bye.